everyone, so I decided that I would try to record. I'm always like touching my invisible glasses when I wear my contacts, but I have now finished the Best of All Possible Worlds by Karen Lord, and I thought I would try my hand at vlogging my read of the Galaxy game. So I've started a few chapters already, and based on my understanding, the Galaxy game follows Raffi, and Raffi is Grace Delarua's nephew, who we met in the Best of All Possible Worlds. So when we met him, I think the first time we meet him when Delarua makes a visit to her sister Maria and her sister's family on their homestead and on Cygnus Beta. I mean, I think they spent most of their time on Cygnus Beta anyway. And we meet him as a little boy who absolutely loves his aunt. And we learn more about the relationship because when he runs into his aunt, she sort of reminisces about him as a child and everything. And so we learn a little bit more about their relationship. And so that's super cool. And so now Raffi has grown up and he is in a special school. I don't know very much about this school, but I think this school is for people with psychic abilities, many of the students have psychic abilities. I'm not sure exactly why. And I think like in the last couple of chapters of the Best of All Possible Worlds, there's this little vignette where Delarua and Raffi are just interacting with each other and talking with each other, and Raffi is sort of talking about his first couple of weeks or months at the new school and how he feels about it and how he's settling in. So the Galaxy game begins with us meeting Raffi again several years later after he's been at the school for a while. And so what I know about this book is that while it has been described as young adult, it's actually not, but it does follow the experiences of three young people who are at this special school on Cygnus Beta, each of whom has their own set of skills and their own reasons for wanting to escape. So that's what I know. And since I'm in a little Italy, for those of you who have never been to Toronto, I'm going to give you a little bit of like a cityscape, and I will check in with you once I have started. This reading vlog is going to probably be spoilery because I want to like take you along my journey. So if you don't want spoilers, then don't watch until you've read the Galaxy game. But also Editing and Jerry just like put spoilers in the description and also in the title of the video. So okay, so we have a prologue, and in the prologue we are situated a little bit. We meet Raffi, we meet another character, one of the three students in the school that sort of wants to get out. And then chapter 1 introduces us to what the Galaxy game sort of is. So there's a lot of information in the prologue to provide us with some context of what the origin stories of these four like groups of humans and some of the political backdrops. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about this is like how the experiences of women are centered. So because the majority of the survivors of the attack on Sidira were men, there is a shortage of Sidiri women, which has created like serious patriarchal risk for the safety of women. And I just love that, like, if I go sideways a little bit, like, you know how when we talk about war, right? Of course, there's so much opportunity to talk about war because powerful men are destroying our planet. So one of the things that I find really interesting about the way that Karen Lord is talking about the destruction of Sidira is that she is telling us about how that has impacted families, communities, and women and elders. And so in The Best of All Possible Worlds, when she, at the end of the book where we talk about like the kind of work that needs to be done in order to replenish the Sidiri, she talks about elders who do not have any descendants and who want to feel like they are a part of community, and how elders were moving from New Sidira to Cygnus Beta to join homestead communities so that they could perform the duties of being an elder. I love that there's a strong anti-relationship between Grace de la Rua and her nephew Rafi. Again, like helping us to think about relationships outside of like the nuclear family. And so here in the prologue, and then also more so in the prologue, we see how much love there is between Rafi and his aunt. And so Grace de la Rua is in the background, but she is still, and her story is still a part of what we start the Galaxy game with. So that I think is really cool. But back to what I was saying about war, that we hear the numbers, right? Think about it this way. Whenever we talk about war, we hear, what kind of numbers do we hear? We hear X number of people killed, X number of people injured, right? We don't, X number of people displaced, right? But we don't hear about how many people were subjected to sexual violence. We don't hear about how many people were pregnant or who lost their children as a result of the wars, like miscarriages. We don't get the number of miscarriages. We don't get the number of incidents of sexual violence. We don't get the number of elderly people or people with disabilities who are even more vulnerable to the destabilization of their communities as a result of war. We only hear about what has happened to, like, for the most part, the universal person who is cisgender male, right? And if you deviate from that in terms of your identity, we don't hear about the unique harms that you would experience. So if you're a person with a uterus and you're pregnant, or you're somebody with mental health disabilities, or you're somebody, or any disabilities, if you are elderly, if you are whatever, we don't hear your story when the news talks about war, right? And so we forget that for every one person who loses their life as a result of war, there are thousands, millions of people who are harmed in ways that are absolutely devastating to the body, mind, and spirit, but who we don't hear about, we don't see, right? Because it's not the numbers that are repeated, right? And so that is something that I've been thinking about, because Karen Lord's work, by telling us the story of the Sidiri and their quest, like post-genocide, so a genocide attempt on the Sidiri by the Ain, and then the result of that, the Sidiri trying to figure out ways to build back their communities, she's really having us think about the transgenerational and intra-generational harm caused by that act of genocide, and how that harm has rippled through, you know, the diaspora, I'll call it, but rippled through the different like groups of humans, the Sidiri, the Jainu, the Terrans, and the Signians. I'm still getting the worlds right. But anyway, I think that's really interesting. So again, we haven't gotten too much into the story, but I'm liking the way that she's explaining what the Galaxy game is. I am much less confused than the first time I opened this book, but I am still having to look up things like, what is a suborbital city? What is that? What is suborbital, like, what is, what's the word I just learned? Geosynchronous. Oh, what is the word? I had to look it up, and then I had to watch videos so that I could understand this. Okay, so she says, I think it's at the beginning of chapter 1. Stay with me, folks. So she's describing Terminal 5, which is a suborbital city, does she say? Yeah. So she says, Terminal 5 was a suborbital city strung between the icy surface of the planet and the icy pitted armor of a single arc of the geosynchronous station. You're not gonna, well, maybe you're light years ahead of me in your understanding of things, but unless you Google it, what is a suborbital city? So I learned that suborbital is, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but if like a rocket ship does not exceed a particular speed, it will not be able to leave our atmosphere and enter into orbit. And I think it's like 24,000 kilometers per hour or something like that. And that's why, like, you have all of these rich men trying to have all these like suborbital flights where you like don't go be like into outer space, but you get just to, at the cusp where you can still experience weightlessness. It doesn't make you an astronaut. Sorry, Gail and Katie. But you get close to going into outer space. And so I guess a suborbital city is a city that's off planet, but just below that threshold is what I think that is. And then geosynchronous is when you have a body in space that matches the orbit of another body. So if a satellite matches the orbit of the Earth, then it is geosynchronous with the Earth. So then I was like, okay, where have I seen something like this? I've seen that in the opening scenes of like Deep Space Nine, for example. And so I had to like work a little bit just to sort of understand, because if you don't understand the vibe of Terminal 5, the vibe of this space, and you don't understand like the science of it, you might actually miss a lot of nuance. So I'm just kind of trying to not overdo it with my external research, but I am trying to kind of understand enough like about where we are to have this make sense. And then the closest thing the closest reference I have to a game is the Hunger Games Maze Runner, I think. But these sort of like games that are about more than just the game. So I'm wondering if the galaxy game has meaning beyond just being a game, which it obviously does. So anyway, I don't know. That's what I've got to say to you for now, and I will keep reading, and I hope that you're enjoying this vlog. If you are, please remember the cascading comments. Now would be a really good time to answer the question how much research do you like to do when you're reading science fiction? Do you just go in and hope that the meaning, the setting and the words and the concepts make sense to you, trusting that they'll be explained later? Or do you binge research just so that you can jump into it? I'd love to hear your approach, because I don't read a ton of hard science fiction, but right now I'm really interested in reading harder science fiction. So yeah, okay, see you again. Finished the first part of the story, and so right now what has happened is Raffi has run away from the Lyceum, and he is also off going to another planet, another province of Beta, And he went and visited his aunt in Glenloch, but also Commander Nicia has been told that she has to go back to New Sidira, so she has to leave her husband. And there's all this like political turmoil because what has happened is New Sidira has become very, very conservative, and it's trying to get all the pure-blooded Sidiri to return to New Sidira, and the Sidira on Cygnus, that community is much more like welcoming and understanding of like hybrid families and so on. So there's like a divide between Sidira and New Sidira, and then we have like the Zynuvians and the Dishone, and they're all like in quarrel, right? So there's this whole like instability. I don't exactly understand the reason for this instability. It's not fully being explained, but I think what's happening is the Sidiri used to be on top. They were psychically dominant. They were seen as the ones who were responsible for like the political order of all of the human groups. But because they were destroyed, that power was destabilized. And it seems like there is a power vacuum and like a fight for some kind of order as a result of Sidira like not being as powerful as it was before. And there's like all of these options as to like, how do we organize society? How do we manage this part of the galaxy given this significant change? So I don't really know how Raffi and his two friends are going to be a part of this like political instability, but I'm finding that part of it really interesting. And again, Karen Lord talks about her work as being sociological fiction, and here we have like a society that has broken down and it's trying to rebuild itself, and I find that super fascinating. So that's where I am in the book. I'm enjoying it. I think it's thrilling. I think it's complex. I'm finding myself having to read like certain pages over and over again. I need some lip balm. Oh my goodness. I am finding I'm finding myself reading passages over and chapters over just so that I can have like a better understanding of what's going on. So far, still good, still enjoying it. And yeah, I like how Karen Lord leaves these little hints that she doesn't pick up until later, so you really do have to read closely. So there's one character, I don't even remember her from the first book, but she's important and special, and we'll find out why later. So that's how's it going so far.
Hello, it's Editing and Jerry here, and I thought it would be a good idea to talk to you a little bit about how I approach annotations, because you'll see, you'll probably also see that I am constantly eating and reading. This is one of the rare occasions where I'm just sitting in our house, eating and reading. Usually, as you saw in previous clips in this vlog, usually I am reading on my commute. But I got this little like leather bookmark thing, which I think is genius. It allows me to have my annotation tools with me at all times because I find it extremely painful to read without access to any kind of writing tool. So what I did for this read is I have a highlighter marker. It's a double pointed marker, so it's got a brush on one end and writing like a sort of thinner nibbed marker on the other end. And so anything that I find interesting, I highlight. So anything that I want to return to for the purpose of doing a review, or anything that I read that I thought, you know what, it's making me think, I highlight. But you'll also see that from time to time, I will pull my marker and I will write. I'll usually write reactions. So if I read something and I think, wow, I really don't like that they did that, or I wasn't expecting that, or I'm predicting that something is going to happen, I write it right in the book. Also, because I've started my writing journey, if I read something that was done really well by the writer, then I'll write down, like, I really liked how, like, their use of this word, or I really liked how they set out the setting, or I really like how they showed me something without telling me something. So I'm constantly engaged in what I'm reading. I also find the tactile experience of writing things down, it helps me stay connected to the story. I don't know if I've shared this on this channel, but I was diagnosed with ADHD a couple of years ago, and I have, as many adults, many people who were diagnosed in their adulthood, I definitely am learning a lot about, how my mind can sometimes wander when I'm reading, and I find that having a writing utensil in my hand and carrying my thoughts through the pages, through writing or bookmarking or highlighting, helps me retain what I've read and stay connected to the story.
Life is lifing. Life is lifing. And it has been really busy. So let me give you some plant. There you go. There's a Transcandia Nanook. Transcandia. It's very pretty. Okay, so so there are 3 parts to this story. The first part, I saw somebody with this like little bookmark for your pens, which, as an avid, I'm trying to do a little demonstration for you. You just put your highlighter and your pen in here, and then you have like an elasticized bookmark that holds your page, kind of. There are, I think, 3 parts to the Galaxy game. The first part is called the Galaxy game. The second part is called Punartum, and the third part is called the Vanguard, part 3. So I'm just, as I said on page 237, just finishing off Punartum. So in this story, as I mentioned, I think in previous videos, we're following Raffi. Raffi is the nephew of Grace de la Rua, who we meet. The first book, The Best of All Possible Worlds, is the story of Grace de la Rua as she is joining a team that's trying to find a place for the remaining Sidiri, those who are the survivors of the attack on Sidira by, we believe, by the Ainians, who are another group of humans who live in a place called Ain, A-I-N. And so we meet Raffi there because Grace goes to visit her sister Maria, and we learn that Grace has a very close relationship with her nephew Raffi. So in the second book, The Galaxy Game, we see Grace de la Rua a little bit. She lives with Glennock and a number of people from her former crew on a homestead, and she and her nephew, who was taken into care because his father was a narcissist who was using his telepathic abilities to control the family, and is now like somewhere else. So Raffi, who also has psionic abilities, was sent to a special school, the Lyceum. So he hates the Lyceum, and but he has made 2 friends there, Serendipity and Tenman. So at the beginning of the Galaxy game, we meet Serendipity, Tenman, and Raffi. And we learn that Raffi has these like gifts that Serendipity finds very alluring, but the school is trying to figure out like what kind of gifts he has, how they are controlled, if they are bad or good, and they can't find out. They don't know what Raffi is, like what his skills are. So they decide that they are going to cap him. Capping him means putting a literal cap on his head, but using like the cap has like wires and stuff, technology in it that is supposed to help them figure out what his skills are. And of course he doesn't want that, so he basically runs off. He runs back to and escapes back to Grace Delarua and Glennock's homestead, stays with them for a bit, and in that time he basically applies to be an independent. So at a certain age, I think he's 17, on Cygnus Beta you can register to become an adult earlier than the usual time, which means that he can travel around without anybody controlling him. So he actually leaves Cygnus Beta, and he leaves at the same time as Nasia, who we met in the first book, is required to return to New Sidera. So I told you a little bit about the politics, I think, in an earlier video, but basically New Sidera is becoming very like even more controlling. They want all the pure Siderans to return. They are particularly interested in pure Sideran women because they want to build up the population again. And so they're basically these women on New Sidera are like, I don't know if they're being trafficked or sexually assaulted, but there's this whole thing happening on New Sidera. And we know that there are a bunch of like Sideri pilots who have tried to help the women escape. So there's all this stuff like going on politically, because the Sideri used to be the most powerful group of humans, and because of the attack on Sidera, they're no longer powerful. That has left a power vacuum, and so there's a particular group called the Jinuvians, and the Jinuvian cartels are controlling trade, and they're raising their prices, and they are basically, because the Sideri aren't there to like govern or to control things, they're just basically monopolizing everyone. So anyway, where I am right now in the story is, so when Raffi decides to leave, he's already left the school, and when he decides to leave his aunt and his uncle, he decides to go to Punartam, and he has to take a mind ship to do that. So he leaves and goes to Punartam, but right behind him is his friend Tenman, who also like tries to connect with him on Punartam to like keep him safe, right? Because he doesn't really understand what the hell is going on in the politics and in the world. And Punartam is like this very, it's like, hi, hey baby, I'm just doing a video. I'm just doing a video, so nobody can see you or hear you. Well, they can hear you, but they can't see you. I'm recording for my vlog. Everybody say good morning, Tommy. You can't do that. So Tommy says good morning. Her voice is very husky in the morning. So anyway, so yeah, Punartam is like this like big city, very, very, I think of it as like downtown Los Angeles or like downtown San Francisco or something like that, or at least the way that I imagine those places. So very, very busy. There's like a high life, so lots of people living and walking around above ground, lots of people living below ground. There's like this very complicated below ground life and activity. Punartam has 2 suns, and because of the light situation, there's like a lot of like rooms with art buildings with artificial lights, so that's how your rhythm, your circadian rhythm, can get sort of reoriented. And then the sport that everybody is super interested in is wall running, and there are pro and semi-pro and then amateur wall running leagues, and the leagues are both, just like sports now, the leagues are both entertainment and politics, and because the Dinuvian cartels are threatening to like take over, wall running is one of the ways that different groups of people can communicate and compete. So it has a heightened importance. I don't fully understand everything that's happening in this world. It's extremely complicated. The social dynamics are complicated. It's a very diverse place because there are people there are like Antishine there are Sidirans there are Signians there are like lots of different kinds of folks who interact in different ways, lots of different beings and animals and telepathic abilities, like all sorts of stuff is going on. But the thing that is really interesting is that Raffi is being noticed, right? Raffi is being noticed because he has social capital, and he's connected to Grace de la Rua. He's also connected to Glennock, and Glennock is now a governor, and so Raffi, as his nephew, has like status as a result of that. And he's Raffi de la Rua, so he carries the name de la Rua, so people know who he is. But in addition to knowing who he is, they are also very intrigued by his telepathic abilities that they don't fully understand, and that frankly Raffi doesn't fully understand. So there are a lot of people wanting to like groom him and claim him and take him under their wing, teach him the ways of Punartam, teach him about his own skills, but he's still like floundering around, not really knowing what's going on. All he knows about his skill is that he is able to influence people, and that he is very intoxicatingly attracted to people who like when people are emotionally and psychically in tune, like it's like a drug. It drives him mad to be a part of like collective action and collective movement, and he just can't help himself when he's in those spaces. And he also knows that he has some kind of ability to influence people's feelings, control, who knows, right? But at the end of part 2, Punartam, there's an attack on Punartam. There's an attack on one of the academes, and the academes are these like groups. They're like clans, kind of, and each academe has a tower that goes all the way up into the sky, into like the suborbital realm, and each like academe is responsible for something, but they all do like academic research, and they all have like, they're kind of like Shishi ivory towers, except there are like 8 of them or something. Anyway, one of the academes gets attacked right at the end of part 2, and as a result of this, Raffi has to flee, and so he leaves with 2 Sidiri pilots that he was hanging out with, having lunch at the time, and he gets on a mine ship, and he goes back to Cygnus Beta. So that's what's happening right now. At the end of part 2, he is on Cygnus Beta. Unfortunately, because of the attack and the evacuation, he was separated from Intenman. So as you can hear, like, I'm in the story, I am invested, I am rooting for Raffi. I'm sad that he and Intenman got separated, but I also think that Intenman wanted to use Raffi for his credit. and for his gain. And there's something that's happening within Tenmin that feels like villain energy. Like, you and I used to be friends, but then you left me, and now I want to kill you. Like, you know, like it just, and Tenmin has like a streak of something in him. And so I can definitely see the sadness of being separated when Tenmin was trying to help Raffi and help himself. I can see that developing into like Dark Lord vibes. So we'll see what happens. Who knows? Who knows? It might not. And yeah, so that is where we are in the story. And I wanted to show you something. You might notice that I'm looking over here. Earlier this week, I made the first version of my TBR game. And I pasted it on the wall so I could like look at it and get ideas. But this is the board. It's called Our Afrofutures, but I actually think I'm gonna change it to Read with Purpose. I don't know, we'll see. Because that is my hashtag, so we'll see. Anyway, I plan, like I'm pretty much ready to finish this book. I only have about 50, I would say, do I have 70 pages left? Something like that. I have about 70 pages left, so I'm going to finish this in the next couple of days, and then I will be finished. I'll be finished. And the next book in the series is The Blue Beautiful World, and let me just see if I have a copy of it. I thought I had kept a copy. But my book collection has gotten large, so I don't know if I actually have one. You know what? Hold that thought. Let me see if I can find it. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it, so either I have it either I have it, or, well, it's probably in storage, so that's just, I really don't like losing things on my bookshelves. It's very annoying. So I'll have to find the book. That's okay. Just more support of Karen Lord. And then I'll be done. I'll be done the Cygnus Beta, the 3 books of Cygnus Beta. And then I'll be able to move on, because I feel like I want to return to the world. I don't know if I'm going to read another book in between, but maybe I will. I don't know. And then I'll come back to the world. Maybe I need a little space from it, but yeah, because I did just read the Blue Beautiful World last year, but I just didn't have all the context, and I'm really looking forward to having a better understanding of it. So yeah, this was a bit meandering. I'll see you in the next video. So it has been a while since it's been a few days actually since I've actually read the book. My week since the last time I recorded for this vlog has been just so busy. And now I have a bit of time. I'm in a hotel. And I have a bit of time to just sort of think about where I'm at. So I think I'm maybe 50 pages away from finishing the book. But, and this is something I want to share with you about my reading. When I read a book, especially if I am reading a series, and especially if I'm in the middle of the series, I know how important it is for me to make sure that I get every detail I possibly can. And so sometimes that results in me doing immersive reading and then just doing sight reading or just doing audio reading, and maybe going back and reading chapters upon chapters multiple times so that I have a felt seen relationship with the story that I'm reading, because I sometimes forget. But also I really want to do the story justice. You know, when you think about it from like the perspective of the writer, right? It can take a writer, years. Like, I've been writing a short story for about 6 years, right? Imagine a whole novel, right? And this brilliant mind of Dr. Karen Lord, right? She's been building this world for us, taking it from her beautiful imagination, using her beautiful words, putting it into a beautiful book for us to consume. And it's like, you have a fine wine, you're not going to drink it with a straw. There's a reason wine is served in like 6-ounce glasses so that you can enjoy it. And so sometimes I sip a story and I go back and I get a sense of the feel of it. Sometimes I listen to it just to hear the cadence of it. Sometimes I read it just to see sort of the technical details. I want to know how punctuation was used to emphasize a particular phrase so that I can really make sure that I got what the story was meant to tell, you know? So right now I'm on part 3, The Vanguard. And Raffi is now on Cygnus Beta because of an attack, and he is being reunited with people that we saw earlier, right? He's reunited with Grace de la Rua, but he's now reunited as this new Raffi who knows more about himself, right? And there's a really subtle coming of age story here that I'm really loving. And so he's here and he's reunited with Serendipity and he's reunited with Tenman, and now they're traveling from Cygnus Beta to I think they actually go to New Sidera, I think. But the point is that I want to make sure, since this is the last part of the story, I want to make sure I fully understand everything that is happening. The politics are all over the place. People are trying to figure out, like, what are the Jainuvian cartels trying to accomplish? What is this new world order, right? There's this vacuum that has been created by the Sidiri no longer having power. And there are power grabs at play. Now we see the Entishune sort of making a bold political move. And we see the Jainuvians, we learn a little bit more about what they've been trying to do for centuries in order to control like galactic politics. Also, galactic politics, the most that we, like, for me, I don't even have a concept of galactic politics. I have a concept of, I'm Canadian, so I have a concept of provincial politics, municipal politics, national politics, international politics, global politics, galactic politics. I wouldn't even know. Well, obviously I would, but it is barely conceivable to me to think about how planets within a galaxy would negotiate communication, intergalactic trade, interspecies relationships, like environment, like I don't even, wow, right? So I'm just letting the story wash over me. And so what I've decided to do is, even though I'm halfway through and about 50 pages away from the end of this lovely book, I am going to go back about 100 pages and I'm going to read the book, probably at the spa, without audio, and just sit with the words. I will continue to annotate, but I will focus on just the words and see where that takes me. And I'm hoping that I'll be done by, it's Saturday now, I'm hoping I'll be done by Tuesday because I have a flight, and that'll give me like 45 minutes, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to finish. And then I will be done the Galaxy game. And it's kind of cool because the first time I read the Galaxy, or tried to read the Galaxy game, I could not. But now I'm reading it with ease, and I feel comfortable enough with this first read of the story to be able to talk about it. And this vlog has been a great opportunity to do so. And I'm rooting for Raffi. I have read the next book in the series, which is called The Blue Beautiful World, or The Blue Beautiful World. And because I've read it, I know what Raffi becomes, I think. And I'm just like, I'm so excited to see like how the characters in the Blue Beautiful World became those characters, right? How did that happen? And because some of these characters live a very long time, hundreds of years in some cases, I get to kind of see how they are affected by the politics and the decisions made by politicians over time. So that is what I'm working on right now, and I'm excited, and I'm going to get ready to go to the spa and enjoy myself and catch a break and continue to read this book. I also intend to record some videos while I'm here, so that'll be really nice. The natural light is naturally lighting, so that's fun. All right, everyone, I will see you in my next dispatch. Let me know how you're enjoying this vlog. And this might be a nice pause point for you to just be like, to tell me, do you want more of these vlogs? Do you like hearing me talk about my books as I read them? And I'm also thinking, obviously, by the time you see this, I will have already made a decision, but I'm wondering, should I post the vlogs in segments, or should I post them in little bits? In one whole thing. You know, I find it hard to watch vlogs that are very long, but also I want to hear from you at each juncture. So I think I'm trending toward wanting to have you respond as the vlog goes on, and maybe like put out a new vlog a new part of the vlog each day. We shall see. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Hello. So I am almost done. I'm at the epilogue, and I just did a 90-minute reading sprint on my channel. I'm not feeling the best today. So it was really good to just sit here and read, and I'll probably finish, because even though the reading sprints are over, I only have 8 more pages. So I am really excited that I will be finally finish the Galaxy game, and I'll be able to take what I've learned and felt through, and then I'll read something probably very, very different in between, and then I'll go back after a book or two and finish off with The Blue Beautiful World. I'm looking forward to that. And I'll just say that where we are right now is, so Raffi and Intendment and Serendipity are sort of back together, and Raffi has formed like a temporary kinship with the Patrona, and he is going on these missions, these transport missions, to help people get to different places. One of those places being New Sidira. Tlanok has gone back to New Sidira as well. And there's all this like politicking that's happening as folks are starting to discover that the travel embargoes that were placed on different planets have been compromised for centuries. And so right now there's so many different groups of people that have figured out different ways to like secretly transport, go from one place to the other. It's interesting how important transportation is here. So yeah, it's becoming more of a story of like politics, trade, society, and less about like, it's not really character driven. It's very much world and plot driven. Karen Lord is sort of just teasing us with the idea of a galaxy that could get along, that's not hierarchical, that has like leadership and order but doesn't have oppression. So it's very interesting. And one of the things that I was listening to her speak some time ago, one of the things that she said is that like where you're from informs what you'll write and what you're interested in. And I have to say that there's so many groups, so many planets in the galaxy that are interacting with each other, and they're all human, but they've developed a little bit differently and have different skills, different cultures, different psionic abilities, but they're all sort of together. And it reminds me more of how the Caribbean is organized, as opposed to like different states or provinces or territories on one landmass. And so I feel like it makes sense that a Caribbean science fiction writer would be able to comfortably write a world that consists of the same species of people, of beings, interacting with each other and having very different politics and trying to figure out how to survive, it's really interesting. And it's almost like Sidira had a colonial relationship with some of the other, or quasi-colonial relationship with some of the other communities. And I wonder if this story is like a metaphor for post-independent states and how they've like come together, tried to figure out how to respect each other, but also kind of jockeying for position. So very interesting story. Okay, so I will probably be done in about half an hour or so, and I'll probably do one final video and then get this vlog up, I guess. I think we're going to try and get the vlog up. We'll see. See you soon. Everyone, so this is going to be the end of my vlog of the Galaxy game. I'm not feeling the greatest right now, so I'm going to try and get this all done before I start coughing again. But I finished the Galaxy game a few days ago, and actually that's a lie. I finished it about 4 days ago, and I was really really happy to be done, because I was stopping and starting and stopping and starting, and each time I stopped I had to go back and reread a chapter, and it was getting really tedious to do that. So I'm glad that I had like a concentrated amount of time so that I could actually finish the story. So, you know, in classic Karen Lord fashion, we got a really neat ending of one arc of the story and then the beginning of another. And in doing so, I felt really satisfied that we were able to see that Raffi has sort of like come into his own. He has circled back. He's back now in Flaxa City. We've got sort of this new world order situation happening, new galactical order. We've got a lot of tensions that are rising, but he's kind of found his place for now. We also have all of these different groups vying for power. We see that Glennock has had the opportunity to return to New Sidira and to reckon with the past. We see that the Entishane have this like long game of really trying to maybe democratize transportation, like intergalactic transportation or trade, or maybe just trying to control it. We don't really know, but we see that the Gynuvian attacks on the Academes have resulted in this desperate attempt to grab power. So that part of things has been resolved. But what hasn't been resolved is how this is all going to end. Who is going to have this power? What is going to become of the Sidiri? Will there be an answer to why Sidira was attacked? Who was responsible for it? What's next for these communities, right? And I think that's kind of what I'm left with. Like, I love the relationships that everybody has with each other, but I think what's most important for me is like, when you have an order that relies upon one dominant group, and that dominant group is destroyed, what comes up and replaces it? How do you harness the opportunities that provides? There's also a part of me that wants to benefit from more understanding of the spiritual and mystical and psychic elements of the world. I don't know that I'm going to get that in the final story, but since I've read the final story, I don't really remember a lot of it. I know that there are elements of like magic and power, and I'm sort of looking forward to the opportunity to see the characters again in this final iteration of the story. So that's where I'm at. But I know that I'm going to be reading a couple of books in between
the Galaxy game and the Blue Beautiful World, just so that I can have a fresh perspective when I return to it. So that is the end of my vlog. I want to thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you thought of the style of being with a book. I'm sure that this vlog is going to be about an hour long, so I appreciate it that you might want to watch it in spurts. But if you have been reading the Galaxy game along with me, or following my reading journey along, I'd love to know what you think of this format and what you thought of my read of the Galaxy game. All right, everyone, remember to read with purpose. I'm gonna try and hydrate. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. If you've watched this all the way to the end, any emoji that has to do with galaxies would be much appreciated. I love responding to comments, especially those that are cascading. So please feel free to leave some comments for me and I will respond as soon as I can. Remember to read with purpose, everyone. Bye.